Hello guys, Brad here again with another fragrance video. Today I want to talk about a topic that I kind of thought about today a little bit. I even posted a thread on Base Notes about the topic on the Male Fragrance Forum. That is the topic of fragrance reviewing versus perfumery and whether or not there's a conflict of interest between those two. I think basically how this all got started was a very popular fragrance reviewer by the name of Kerosene, also known as John. He had a very popular fragrance channel on YouTube at one point. I would say at the height of his popularity, he was probably one of the top three fragrance reviewers in the United States behind Tim Swetkoff and my makers, Dan. And at one point, he decided to create his own fragrance and start his own fragrance house. It all started with a fragrance called Rude Elements, and I actually have a decant of that somewhere. And recently, I think he released one called Walk the Sea, which is his interpretation of an aquatic. Of course, now if you go on YouTube, you won't find any videos by Kerosene on YouTube, which I think is a bit unfortunate because I did love his channel and considered him to be a friend as well. Also, Maximilian has dabbled in perfumery a little bit. He still has a channel, but he's implying that maybe someday he'll go a little bit deeper into the art of perfumery and maybe even delete his channel. Of course, Jeremy Fragrance is talking about starting his own line, and who knows what will become of his channel if that happens. So my question is, if you become a perfumer and you're an established YouTube reviewer, should you feel obligated to shut down your channel, or what exactly do we mean when we say there's a conflict of interest? So I figured, there's different ways I think a person could logically behave after they become a perfumer if they're on YouTube as a reviewer. One is just to keep doing what you're doing, continue to review and put out your videos. Maybe a second option would be to just delete your channel, take it all the way off YouTube, maybe keep your channel up and just quit adding new videos and content to your channel. So what is the correct way to go about that? And what would be some disadvantages to doing that versus advantages to doing that, and vice versa? I know, like back when Kerosene was reviewing, I don't think he received much of any compensation for what he did. He may have gotten some freebies. I think he may have gotten some free polos or something, Or I know certainly I sent him some samples that he could have reviewed as well. Not nearly as much going on with his channel back then as there is today with other channels, and I'm pretty sure he didn't have any monetization, wasn't getting the Patreon and the AdSense money. So for him, maybe just lost some free bottles of juice along the way. Doesn't sound like a big sacrifice to be making. You could make the argument that if you are a perfumer and you're trying to promote your brand, maybe you should strictly wear what you're producing as your own as well. Like, for example, you become like the person you would want other people to be. Wear solely the Kerosene fragrances, or if you're Jeremy, wear solely Jeremy fragrances. So with that in mind, okay, you're not trying any other fragrances, quit reviewing fragrances, correct? So that's one way to think about it. Or you could just say, hey, I admire other perfumes and other fragrances besides what I make, so I'm going to continue to wear them. Maybe I'll review them. Maybe I'll not review them. Maybe I'll intentionally make them look bad so people ignore them. Maybe I'll say I like them and take the risk of people straying away from my fragrances. Like, for example, let's say Kerosene. Let's say he's still reviewing and he talks about um, Pacific rock moss and says best aquatic he's ever smelled. Okay, so he has an aquatic out called Walk the Sea, which uh, I'm sure he would love to sell thousands of bottles of. And the people are all flocking towards Pacific rock moss. Maybe that means less people are flocking towards Walk the Sea, even though they're probably not even similar fragrances, but they're both aquatics. So that's one way to look at it. When I talked to the base note community, I did see some interesting responses. Some people said it didn't really matter what YouTubers did because they're all just a bunch of shillers just looking for freebies, and their opinion doesn't matter. I don't know if I agree with that, and that could be the case in some extreme uh, cases, but not necessarily every case. Um, some people said that it's okay to keep reviewing as long as you didn't review your own fragrances, because if you reviewed your own fragrances, you would certainly give them a higher mark than they deserve from the bias. Um, some people said as long as you could be impartial, didn't matter what you did. Can you be impartial if you're making your own fragrances and reviewing other people's fragrances? Big, important question. And I'm not sure if there is a proper answer to the question. I would say if it was me, I think I would look and see how much money I was making with my channel. Like in Jeremy's case, I'm sure he's making thousands of dollars with his channel alone, plus the Patreon money. It's got to be pretty significant. Unless his fragrance house is 10 times that, I can't see just saying no more videos, taking the channel down. Of course, if you're convinced that the 10% of your income that's coming from YouTube would be, you know, absorbed upwards if you took your channel down and maybe had 10% increase in sales, okay, maybe then I could see it if that's actually the case. So, yeah, I would love to hear people's thoughts on this topic because I think it's very interesting. Personally, I hate to see reviewers go away. And, really, I'm probably not the type of person that's going to buy a lot of YouTube reviewers' fragrances anyway. As much as I like kerosene, I do have one bottle of his fragrance I bought from the Fragrance Bros, Santalum Slivers, and I don't really wear that one. So, and I don't know if a review of it on YouTube made much difference. I had a sample, liked the sample, got the bottle. So that was that for me. So I'm not sure if I really understand all this conflict of interest talk when it comes to reviewing. So just curious to hear what other people thought about this topic. So that's it for now. I just thought I'd get that off my chest. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.